Hey everybody, I wanted to welcome you back to I Told My Wife I'm Paying Bills. I'm Slim,
And I'm Black, back again.
and we are back for our X-Men episode. So on the last episode, Black and I actually went in and we talked about how we finished Gears of War 3. It took us a while. It seemed like we weren't going to do it for a little bit, but we ended up doing it. We knocked it out the park. And it was such a good experience. I actually like it. And, I can't wait till we actually do 4 and 5. So that's going to be dope. So, and Black actually had positive reviews on it. So if you get a chance, please go back and listen to that episode. For this episode, like I kind of gave a little teaser here, we're going to talk about X-Men, the original animated series. We're going to talk about X-Men 97, and we're going to talk about X-Men games. And I'm going to go into a little bit about the game Star Wars Battlefront 2 that I've been playing. So can't wait to check that out, talk more and, play that more actually too. So talking about X-Men though. Black, you say X-Men is some of your favorite superheroes?
Yeah, I actually started watching Marvel, and learning about Marvel because of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And my favorite character in Marvel is Wolverine from the X. So yeah, I mean X-Men has always been my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So when they came out with, well, I was a huge fan of the '90s cartoon. So when they came out, when they said X-Men '97, I was like, what? What? Then the nostalgia kicked in.
Yeah. So, talking about the X-Men from the early 90s, right? This series ran from 92 to 97. Do you remember the original pilot of that? Do you remember that?
Mm-mm. No.
All right. So this one was called X-Men X-Men Pride of the X-Men. And it was based on Kitty Pryde, who's it was not Shadowcat, it's something whatever, but I cannot remember what her X-Men name is. It's so funny that I can't remember that, and I knew it was right on top of my head and it just went out. But they actually had a couple of different characters in this than the other X-Men did. But they had primarily they had of course Cyclops, they had Storm, they had Wolverine, and they had Nightcrawler, Colossus. So they also had, like I said, Kitty Pryde, and they had Dazzler. From the Brotherhood of Mutants, they had Toad, Blob, Pyro, Juggernaut, and the White Queen. And they had all of these, and part of it in the series, if you actually go in and type Pride of the X-Men, you could actually pull that up on YouTube. So, part of it is like the X-Men are called off somewhere, and then the Brotherhood of Mutants attack the mansion, and Kitty Pryde is left with someone else. I can't remember who she's left with, but they attack and they and some different things happen. It's been a little while since I saw that, but I remember that because my brother actually recorded it and actually had it on a VHS tape for the longest time. And that series, even though it wasn't picked up, that series, that pilot ended up, it was broadcast at some point, and it was actually kind of what led to another version of the X-Men. And this version was different. They had different voice actors. I don't think all the voice actors were different, but this one actually had some other voice actors. And this one actually lasts, like I said, from 92 to 97, so 5 years.
Right.
This was a dope, defining X-Men cartoon that most people remember and love. So, and when I say most people, even people who are younger than our generation have seen these episodes and love them.
Yep.
So that's the one that a lot of people remember. Now, before this episode, I actually wanted to kind of go back and watch the other episodes. Unfortunately, I didn't because I wanted to kind of prepare and do it, but I didn't. There was some other things, and then holidays, of course, but I do remember a little bit of the episodes. Do you remember a lot of them? Do you remember, have a good memory of a lot of those episodes?
From the '90s?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but they have the actual '90s episode on Disney Plus.
Yeah, that's why I said I wanted
And
to go back and watch them, but I didn't.
so when I was watching X-Men '97, I I've only seen actually 3 episodes of that because the
Mm-hmm.
'90s nostalgia had pulled me back in. So I remember the first couple of episodes. They're going against Magneto and all that other good stuff, and then Wolverine. They end up, Sabretooth is attacking the courtroom where
Mm-hmm.
Beast is at, and it's just it's crazy because I remember Wolverine is always my favorite character because he just seems to say what's on his mind, and he's real tough. He's a tough
Yeah.
he's a tough dude. So it's like I remember him saying to Professor Xavier when they're going to take out Magneto, and they saved Sabretooth from the people that got him in the court,
Mm-hmm.
and then so he's actually in the infirmary of the X-Men mansion, and Professor X and Jubilee, you know, along with Cyclops and Storm, they Wolverine is trying to get him out of there, and they stop him. And Wolverine was like, "Well, you don't know him. He can't stay here." And Storm says, "Well, that's the same thing we thought about you. Both of you have animalistic tendencies too."
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, they have to go respond to what Magneto is doing. So, uh, Wolverine, he just takes the bed where Sabretooth is, where he's laying at. He takes it and he just slams against the wall. And he says, and he walks and looks at Professor Xavier and says, "Well, how come we got to trash your old enemy, but we got to go easy on mine?"
Right. Yeah, yeah.
you
That
know?
sounds so familiar too.
Yeah. It was just, it psyched me out, man. I just, that particular part, I mentioned it because that's what really I was already a Wolverine fan, but that's
Mm-hmm.
what really pulled me into the '90s because I was like, yeah, that's the real Wolverine. He ain't nice. He's not nice.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. They did a really good job. And it was on Fox Kids that old school X-Men was on Fox
Yep.
Kids, and they did a really good job of making it just hit the edge of being not for kids.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the new X-Men, they made it more not for kids. Like they made
yep.
it closer to something for us, for our
Mm-hmm.
generation. So
Yep.
basically, this X-Men '97 actually grew up with us. And
Mm-hmm.
now, we're able to actually watch and see X-Men that we actually see in the comics. They've got love stories. They've got like wild deaths in there. There's some people who die in there, and then they even have something that happens in one of the comics that I'm not even going to bring up because you haven't gotten there yet. And actually, that would be a major spoiler that I don't even want to upset our listeners about. There is a major story that there's something that actually happens to one of the characters in the comics, and it happens to them in the second to last or the last episode. I think it's the last episode it happened. And when it happens, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that." And it looks almost exactly like the comic too. Like if you actually Google what happens, then you actually see some people actually have a screenshot of the comic and a screenshot of the actual show, and they look identical. It's just so amazing. It was crazy. So
I think I
it
know
was
what you're
really
talking about.
good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But don't even talk about it.
No, no,
But
I'm not gonna say
yeah,
nothing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It may be, but it may not be. It may not be what you think. But um, like I said, they have some really good depths, and then the episodes really took me right. So let me get into it on my part about it. So um, I don't even know what made me want to watch it. Like I did want to wait till the whole season was out because I wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, just in case I really ended up liking it a lot and binge watch. I wanted to binge watch it, which that's what I ended up doing. Um, Now, for everyone who's listening, please don't come for me. Please do not come after me. I just listen to everything I'm saying before you get angry. At first, the very first episode I started watching of X-Men '97, I didn't like it. And the
We
only
forget.
Go ahead.
Let's stop right there.
Hmm.
We forgive Slim. Okay, say it with me, ladies and gentlemen. We forgive Slim. He
Yeah.
had to watch the first one, and then he had to, adjust. So we got to bring him in. Please don't punish the man. Let him finish.
And here's my reasoning at first. Okay, something about the animation style bothered me, and I don't know what it is. But then I looked at it, and I even looked at like the way they were talking, and it almost looked like it didn't match up to the mouth movements and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, I was like, are they really trying? I understood that they were trying to go for the nostalgia look, right? But I'm like,
Mhm.
they could at least match up the mouths to the actual, them actually talking and everything like that. And then it was just, to me, it almost looked kind of cheesy at first, right?
Mhm.
And then I started watching and getting into it and getting into the story and everything. And once I stuck with it. By the end of the first episode, I was like, okay, all right, this might actually really be really good, and I started watching more and more episodes, and I was like, holy crap. I'm like, this is almost like the comic. And so growing up, I didn't have a lot of the X-Men comics. My brother was the collector. He collected way more than I did, but I read a lot of his X-Men comics, and I remember some of the things from his comics, and I was like, oh man, this is just kind of like the comic, you know. And I realized, I'm like, okay, they actually did this for basically for Generation X. This
Mhm.
cartoon was created for Generation X. Somebody in Generation X or somebody Generation X adjacent was like, nah, this is back for us. This is for us. This isn't for all these little like Rugrats running around or whatever. You know, and everything they did was just to your point, like it was just so amazing the way they just did all these different stories, and it was a good direct continuation. I don't remember everything that happened. I do remember though, Professor X going off with the Shi'ar and everything like that, and but I don't remember everything that happened at the end of the first series before X-Men '97.
Mhm.
So I will do a rewatch of that soon, but I have a total of, let me see how many that's like, I've got like at least like ooh, 76 episodes I have to watch. So, 5 seasons, 76 episodes. So that's gonna be a lot. So I'll probably be watching that, like on vacations and stuff too. So it's gonna be crazy. Um, but uh, it was so dope checking out X-Men '97, and the original X-Men actually had a lot of crossovers and things like that here or there. Like they even crossed over into Spider-Man. But
Mhm.
man, it was so good. So, tell me, your thoughts on the like when you first started watching it. Like, just tell me about like like what you feel beyond the nostalgia of it. Because I'm sure the nostalgia drew you into it too.
Mhm. Well, I can tell you that the first couple of episodes, I mean, just off at the end of the first episode, is a shocker.
Hmm.
And spoiler alert for those who have not watched X-Men '97. Uh, you might as well just cut off right here because I'm going to say it. You know, Charles Xavier. Should I say it, Chris?
Well, I can
I'm
say it like
ask.
this: if you haven't seen it, go and watch the first episode and then come back. Don't just like not listen. Pause the episode. Pause the episode of our podcast. Go watch X-Men, and then come back. But I believe the lead in from the previous series is led up. So I know what you're about to say. I believe I know what you're
Mm,
about to say. So I think they kind of already know that. And I will say this: a lot of people, it's all over everywhere. So you can just give some spoilers, but you can't. Don't give all the spoilers. So go
right.
ahead.
Well, I'm gonna give this one spoiler. And you got to forgive me. But so Charles Xavier, you know, gives the X-Men, and it was a shock. My jaw was literally through the floor
Yeah.
when I found this out. The X-Men are now being led by Magneto.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
That was a true shocker, honestly. And I was I was wondering, like, what was his choice. However, you do find out later on, but I
Yep.
was just trying to find out. I'm like, what? Like when he showed up at the end of the episode and he said that and he read out the last will and testament of
Yep.
Charles Xavier,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, so are they bad guys now? Yeah. I swear the little kid in me was really like I was all over the place when I saw that.
but the funny thing about it is that later on in the next couple of episodes, you start to understand and realize that Magneto is trying to change.
Hmm.
You know, he is trying to change. He's trying to change from his ways. You know, Charles Xavier has passed away,
Hmm.
and he's trying to change, and he's trying to understand humans a lot more. Versus the way he was. And I found that to be extremely interesting. Because I'm like, he's always been, being that, anybody who knows the Magneto story,
Hmm.
he was World War II, you know, the persecution of the Jews and all that stuff,
Right.
So he saw, he thought the same thing was going to happen with mutants. They were going to be, you know, just systematically destroyed because of, they were different, you know.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's the reason why he couldn't understand until Charles Xavier. I'm thinking Charles Xavier finally got to him. You know that's at least what I think. After Charles Xavier's death, and he got that will,
Hmm.
Magneto's his whole mentality changed. It's
Yeah.
just interesting the way they did it, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So and that actually seeing that was it it hit me because I was just like, what is he doing? And I was like, and before the episode was over, I kind of was just like, there's got to be something else to it. And then the next
Mhm.
episode, you started
Mhm.
seeing some of the stuff that's going on, especially like the way he was leading the
Yeah,
X-Men,
man.
and I was like, oh, I see what he's doing, and I was pretty much kind of proven right a little bit. So I was like, okay, okay, yeah, I get it now, and it was actually really good, but
Yeah.
um that was pretty smart of Charles Xavier to do that,
Yep.
to try and teach. I'm gonna say it like that, to try and teach Magneto something, and that was really good. You find out a lot more in some more episodes, but trying to teach them. But um, the way a lot of the X Men came in at the beginning of the series too, the first episode, that was actually really dope
Yep.
because of them trying to save a teenager
Mhm.
in that warehouse from the Friends of Humanity, and
Mhm.
that was kind of cool. They each came in. Well, not each, but three. I think it was only three of them that were actually there at the place, the site. And they that was actually it was kind of funny too because the other ones that was still left at the mansion. It was like, it's all right, y'all had it, the whole time. They were all nonchalant about the whole thing, and it was just like, what, so with the death of Charles Xavier, you actually see like how they're kind of splitting away from each other, but not
Yep.
really. And
Mhm.
then you also see that Jean Grey's pregnancy, you see that and come into play too. And that was a whole nother storyline that was actually in there. And that one, that really got me. I was like, what, that storyline? So, um, that actually brought back some younger memories because of the names that came out, according to the pregnancy. So, um, kind of go into a little bit more about the other episodes because one of them is a major spoiler for anyone who hasn't seen it. So I don't want to do too much in there. Um, but kind of go into a little bit more into the first episode and then the second episode, and I'll cut you off if that's too much of a spoiler.
Right. Well, I am going to say one thing.
Hmm.
The way Gambit and Wolverine work together, you know,
Yeah.
during the first assault that they have. Now,
Hmm.
I don't know if you remember this. I'm pretty sure you do, being that it's fresh in your head. But do you remember Wolverine charging and Gambit's kind of like, riding on his back and he's charged his claws? And I actually saw it on a preview
Hmm.
and I was like, did he just charge his claws with kinetic energy? My mind was blown.
Yeah.
I said, did he just charge his claws with kinetic energy? And he literally, he goes up to the center and just destroys them like it ain't nothing.
Yeah.
You know, I'm like, well, I mean, just the way, because Gambit and Wolverine, they have they have this thing, it's sort of like a rivalry, but not,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
but they're real cool with each other.
Yeah. Wait till you see episode 5 what Gambit does, like how he charges up something in episode 5. That was dope.
Mm.
That was really dope. Whew, episode 5. Episode 5 was hard hitting. There was that, and that's another reason why I say that makes me realize that this was actually meant for older generation of us, because the different episodes, and especially episode 5, if you look online of people watching it and people talking about it, man, people are really like that episode puts you in your feelings because of
Mm.
a couple of different things that happened. So, um, man, it's and it's hard to explain to get to it, but um, so as far as you got, tell me one of the things that happened, because the episodes kind of run together for me. So by
Mm.
the time you got to episode 3, tell me one thing that happens in it, so I can kind of remember like episode 3.
Well, episode 3, if I'm not mistaken, um,
Is that the
episode
courtroom episode?
it might be.
Okay,
It,
so you
it
did see
might
the
be
courtroom
where
episode.
where Beast gets locked up.
No,
No, no, no. Oh no, I'm
it
talking about
was
the '91. No,
Magneto. It
it's
was
Magneto. Yeah,
Okay.
Magneto's court.
Yeah,
So
his yeah.
this is the sickest thing with episode 3.
Mhm.
Magneto, and we all know. I'm not gonna spoil it. The sad thing that happens to Storm. I'm not gonna
Mhm.
spoil it. I'm not even gonna mention it. But after that happened, that Magneto takes them all the way up. You
That was
know,
dope. Yeah.
he takes them all the way up, and you think, okay, he's going back to old Magneto. He's going
Yeah.
back to old Magneto. He's about to just take them all out, and
Mhm.
he doesn't. He says, "I'm trying. I'm
Yeah.
trying." You remember what he said? I'm
Yeah.
trying. You know, and I needed to show you that you could die, but I'm not that guy anymore,
Mhm.
and takes him back down. And then, you see the news broadcast like, Magneto just saved, because he actually saved some lives too while he was at
Yeah.
it, you know?
Yeah.
So, I
And
mean,
the
just to
reason
sit.
why he was in court, sorry to cut you off there, but the
No, no,
reason
no, you
why
good.
he was in court is because of everything he had done prior to that,
Mm-hmm.
and them feeling like, okay, he was a bad guy and he needs to be held accountable for his actions,
Mm-hmm.
even though he's with the X-Men and everybody sees it. Everybody's like, he's still a bad guy. Let's arrest him, and he basically turns himself in
Mm-hmm.
so they can actually put him on trial, and they can actually do everything the right way. Because even the X-Men were looking at him, we were like, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to turn yourself in? You're going to fight? What? So that was the whole trial was a learning experience for Magneto. And
Yeah.
that, I believe, of course, well, not, I shouldn't say I believe, but that was Charles Xavier's design, and it's so he can actually learn to live with humans and deal with humans and their laws, you know.
Yeah.
So so again, I want you to finish. I want you to finish before we go too much further into it, because there is so many different things that we can actually go into, and I want to talk about that. But like I said, this is going to be a shorter episode just because of the fact that this series is still fresh, and even though the first season is over, it has been picked up for more seasons. Um, and you know, the second season is actually the second season is in production, and the third is in development. So actually, it's been picked up for 3 seasons. So that's actually dope. But all 10 episodes are out. But I still want to give people more time to watch it before we actually go into more spoiler details. So instead of going into further detail about X-Men 97, we're kind of giving our overview on how we feel about this. And granted, like I said, at first I didn't like it, but it hooked me. It hooked me in. I loved it, And I'm definitely going to go back and watch the original X-Men, and then I'm going to watch 97 again before the other next season comes out. Some of the X-Men games, though, do you remember some of those games?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you
I
remember
remember I didn't even have a Genesis, when this particular X-Men game came out. But my cousins did. And I used to watch them play it. The real popular game that came out on Sega Genesis back in the day.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the X-Men game that came out for the Genesis. I believe my brother had that one. If he didn't, then he borrowed it from a friend or he rented it from the video store. But do you remember the Nintendo version of the X-Men game?
Yeah, I do. I remember the only one I played on Nintendo was the one that came out for the Super NES. And that particular one was it Super NES? Or was I'm sorry, it was the Super NES. And that was X-Men. What was it? X-Men. I forgot the name of it, but it had you could play as Psylocke, which is one of my favorite. She's one of my favorite X-Men as well. You had Psylocke, you had Wolverine, Cyclops, Gambit, and Beast. And it was actually that particular game was made by Capcom.
Okay. I'm looking to see. So that one is Arcade's Revenge for the Super NES.
What's the name of it?
Spider-Man X-Men Arcade's Revenge. Is that the one
No,
you're talking
not that
about? Okay. So
It's
then
another one.
there's also in 1994 X-Men Mutant Apocalypse.
I think that's that one.
That
Yeah.
that looks like it because it has Psylocke on it and all that. Yeah,
Yep.
that
That's that
sounds
one.
like that's the one because that one is the only one that was on the Super NES.
Yep.
So well, sorry, not the only one, but that's the only Super NES had X-Men Mutant Apocalypse on it. None of the other systems did. So,
and I thought that particular game was dope because when you start out as Wolverine, he busts through this through this window and he just starts taking out everybody. And it's just and the soundtrack for that game was awesome as well.
Yeah, and is that the one? I think that's the one that had the original Berserker Barrage, right? I just remember Berserker Barrage. It was pretty funny. I think that might have been.
I think that's X-Men versus Capcom. That's like the one.
Well, there was one before that, but I think it wasn't called X-Men versus Capcom, but it was made by Capcom. I think it is Children of the Atom, possibly that had that in there. But
okay.
Yeah, but there was one that they had before it was X-Men versus Capcom or something like that. But there was the original one that I'm talking about is the Uncanny X-Men for the Nintendo system, and it reminds me of Ninja Turtles. That's why I wondered if you remember playing that one because it was an overhead and just that one was just so frustrating to play that I don't remember how far
which
I got
Ninja Turtle. You ain't
the
talking
one
about. You're not talking about. You talking about the one I burnt?
Yeah. The
oh
NES
no, I haven't played that one. I haven't played that particular act. No,
yeah,
I mean, I probably would have saw the view and it would reminded me of Ninja Turtles. I'm like, no, I'm not playing.
Yeah. So this one was an overhead view, and it, like I said, it was actually pretty. It was pretty annoying to play. It was really frustrating, and as I said, I don't remember how much it was, how much I played it, but I just remember it was just so really frustrating, and I was just like, man, I said I just don't want to play it anymore. I really just don't want to play it anymore. But yeah, it's really interesting to see how many games. There are so many games that are just strictly just the X-Men, and apparently for the PS5, um, I like there's supposed to be one that comes out in 2030, which is
Yeah,
weird. I'm
yeah, that's
like,
supposed to be. Yeah, after the Wolverine game, they're supposed to be coming out. They're gonna do another Spider-Man, and then they're gonna do pretty much Insomniac, which is developer for Spider-Man. They're turning into Marvel Comics a developer because they're not making anything else. So
yeah.
um, so yeah, they're supposed to be coming out with an X-Men game in 2030. If it was the Wolverine game, I'm thinking about getting on the PS5. So if once the Wolverine game comes out, because it's my favorite character,
hmm
I might just. That's when you might see me pick up a PS5.
Yeah.
Might. I'll
Well,
try every. I'll try everything I can to do to avoid that, but I might just do it.
well, you said you were gonna get a PS5 soon, though.
Yeah, yeah. You wanna know why? But I was just that was just based on rumors, though. If you remember, I said it's just a rumor, but
hmm
there's a lot of other games that's coming on the PS5 from the Series X, but it never happened. So no
Okay.
PS5.
Yeah, well, it might come back out. You never know. Never know. But um, they actually have a lot of games that was like based off of the movies, and then they have a couple different ones that actually were just PC games,
Mm-hmm.
Game Gear, Sega Master System, like
Mm-hmm.
Mojo's World, X-Men Mojo's World, you know. But X-Men versus Street Fighter, that
Yep.
one was sick. That one was
Mm-hmm.
really sick, and that's definitely one of the ones that had Wolverine's Berserker Barrage on it.
Yep.
Um, Clone Wars was really good too.
mm
Yeah, I believe Children of the Atom was the fighting game that originated that Berserker Barrage, and some of the other ones that were in there. Um, it's sad though that some of the really good games were only on Game Gear,
Yeah.
and other handheld systems. There was some
Well,
other more.
another good game, another good X-Men game. Uh, it was sort of like an overhead, but it was like I think it was called X-Men. And I actually played that one and beat it
hmm
because you could play as all types of X-Men, and you could actually fly around as Jean Grey or Rogue. It's called X. Was what is
About
it?
what year was it that you do remember? What
I,
system was it on?
I believe it was on the I think it was on the GameCube.
On the GameCube?
Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Look up GameCube X-Men game.
all right, so X-Men Next Dimension.
Try the next one.
Okay. There's also X-Men Legends.
That
That
one.
one. That's one.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think it's that one. I think it's that one. But
All right.
you could play as like multiple X-Men characters.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And so
it's sort
Action
of like
Wolverine.
Ultimate Alliance. It was the one before Ultimate Alliance.
Okay. Yeah, because they actually have a couple different ones, but the ones
Yeah.
that when they started going on the XQ on the GameCube was the X-Men Next Dimension, and then from there they had a couple, like I said, Legends, Rise of Apocalypse,
hmm
um, X-Men the official games, so there was a couple that actually came on the GameCube.
hmm
Um, but it sounds like yeah, it could be one of those two that you're talking about, like either Legends or Rise of Apocalypse that were on there. So,
hmm
um, I did not play those. I didn't get a chance to actually try those out. But I want to go back on my PSP, my modded PSP, and see if I can find any of those X-Men games and try out some of these X-Men games that are on there.
Yeah,
But
man.
some of these we can actually pull from Game Pass too.
hmm
So that would be actually kind of cool to check those out. Like I'm almost positive like X-Men: The Last Stand is probably on that. We could probably find that one. We can find X-Men Destiny. So some of these are probably on Game Pass. So
You know what? I mean, it's not exactly an X-Men game. It's actually a Wolverine game. But I never played that Wolverine game, the actual game.
hmm
Um, that came out. With Hugh Jackman, the Hugh Jackman model.
right,
Remember
yeah,
that game?
yeah,
That game
yeah.
I heard was pretty good. and I never played it, so I'm kind of regretting that.
Yeah, and they actually have a lot of these games that I'm looking at. Like X-Men, the official game, they have Hugh Jackman on the cover of that one. But
Mm,
then they do have like the Wolverine game and anything like that. And I actually saw that one, and that I saw a video of it earlier, and actually that looked pretty good too. But either way, yeah. So when we get further in, we can actually go ahead and actually do a game revisit too, because we're gonna come back and talk more about X-Men 97 once it kind of gets a little bit older, so we don't have to worry about spoilers too much.
mm,
Um, before, and I think I want to do that when it's closer to season 2 dropping. So because a lot of people are going to be doing rewatches of season 1. So yeah, I definitely want to come back. So by then, I'll probably also check out some of the games too, so we can actually talk about some of the X-Men games.
mm,
But one thing I do want to talk about though also is the Battlefront game. I want to talk about that just a little bit before we go. So like I said, I did get that game for my birthday, and I may have talked about it some more. I haven't gotten too much more playtime in it just because of everything that's going on, but I will be. And actually, now that the school year's almost over, I get Fridays off. I'm going to check it out and probably play that game more on Fridays. But um, I've got really far in it, and the space battles are a lot easier. And that was one of the things I didn't like about the old Battlefront was the space battles. Those were much, much harder. They
uh,
actually made this a little bit easier and a little bit more forgiving for these space battles. So I don't feel so bad playing that. But man, the gameplay in that is actually pretty fun on Battlefront 2. And the story so far, I gotta get my notes out, but I don't know why I didn't have the notes for that. The storyline so far uh about the commander, you're playing on the Empire side, so I can't wait to see how that story plays out. Right now, I stopped. The last thing I played, you're actually playing as Luke Skywalker, who's working with someone on the Empire to get out of a cave full of like these different type of alien monsters.
mm,
And so that's where I am at right now. And the last time I played, I want to get some more playtime in, which hopefully soon I will be able to. But that's the last place I was at, and that itself, like playing as Luke was actually really dope. That was really fun. Just being a Jedi Knight the way he is, and Jedi Master by this time, I believe. Um,
mm,
and actually playing like Luke, playing like as Luke, and being able to actually use the Force against different soldiers and everything. That was actually mad fun. So I
oh yeah,
really enjoyed that. So and just being able to use your lightsabers and everything. That was really dope. It's no Jedi Survivor, but it's still extremely fun to play, man. And honestly, if you get a chance to actually play it, get it and play the story, because the
mm,
story was so far it's actually really dope. And the fact that you are a fan of Darth Vader and
mm,
the Empire for the most part, um you'll really enjoy the beginning of this story, and like you get to utilize one of your droids a lot too, and the droid actually helps out a lot. So I actually like that part of it, where the droid is on your back, but you can use it for defense, you can use it for offense, you can use it for other things to help out with, and you still have your other elements to where you're actually the character taking on the things, and you're a commander of a strike team too.
mm.
Well, not just a strike team, but like a whole different fighting force almost. So that's actually pretty cool. So I'm gonna get some more game time in about that and play some more of that, because yeah, I got on, and the first time I started playing, I was hooked for like 3, 4, 5 days or whatever, however many days it was. I was hooked on it, and then I had to stop and I had to do other things. And then I started watching other shows. I watched X-Men and I watched some other things, whatever.
Mm.
And I did some other things too. So, I want to get back to that, because that game was so dope. So I can't wait to try that out. But anyway, like I said, I did say, we're going to go ahead and cut this podcast short on this episode, just because we have a lot more watching to do of X-Men, and we can actually get some game time in. So we're gonna go ahead and cut it off here. But if you want to reach out to us, you can hit us up on our socials. On Instagram, we're at Told My Wife Podcast. Our email is toldmywifepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook. I Told My Wife I'm Paying Bills. Hit us up. Let us know any kind of things that you like, don't like. Any kind of constructive criticism. We're more than happy to listen. Suggest different games you want us to try out, and one of us will get to it definitely. But just any types of suggestions or anything like that you want to talk to us about, feel free to get at us. So, Black, you got anything you wanted to say?
Hey man, same thing as usual. I mean, gotta piggyback on Chris. We appreciate your feedback. Please tell us your thoughts. Tell us some of the games you like. Or some of the media you like. We cover all types of entertainment media and stuff like that. So just give us your thoughts. If there's something that you want us to cover, give us your thoughts. Tell us, and we'll do our best to try to make sure it happens.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And I definitely want to kind of look into other things too. I'm gonna I still want to get some other perspectives, some PlayStation perspectives. So I got to reach out to some more people about connecting with us for different PlayStation and other games and venues and things like that. Well, the venues,
Just
but
make sure,
different game stuff.
just make sure they're not fanboy. As long as they're not fanboy, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Well,
I'm just joking, PlayStation fanboy.
I was gonna say that's why I haven't had any Call of Duty people yet, so. Like hardcore Call of Duty fanboys. But no, I'm just kidding about that too.
Call of Duty,
I like
well, it's Game Pass. Call of Duty Black Ops 6 Game Pass coming in the fall. Day one.
Yeah. Well, I ended up getting them at 3 too. So, but that's a whole other story because I haven't really played that much. So I need to get on that but I gotta find a crew that's my level, so I don't feel like I'm being left behind. Because right now I feel like I'm left behind anytime I jump on it to play. So I need to find a good crew to play with.
Who, you?
So, yeah. Well, my brother's
Call of
way
Duty,
ahead of me. I can't play with my brother. Say what?
If I play Call of Duty right now, I get mollywopped. I've never played. And please forgive me. I've never played Call of Duty.
If you can actually play any shooter, yeah. If you can play any shooters,
Destiny 2. I mean, Destiny 2. I run up in the Crucible and make a killing.
Yeah. So once you get locked in on the controls and the views, because you can also change your views too. So once you get locked in on those, then you will do really well. You just got to find the view that fits you the most comfortable, and then after doing that, you get locked in. Boom, you got it. So it's not that hard. So, it's really fun. But anyway, so yeah, like I said, we're gonna cut us off here. Please reach out to us on our socials and let us know what you think. But until our next podcast, I'm Slim.
And I'm Black. Checking out.
Signing off, and we wanted to say thanks again for listening, everybody. All right, have a good one.